Hello, this is the Happy Families podcast. Today we're talking about something that might be happening in your house right now without you even realizing it. Your children may be learning how to gamble while they're playing video games. They don't have to be on any of the betting apps. They could just be playing video games and being groomed into gambling by big tech. New research out of Belgium has tracked more than 500 young people over a 12-month period and found something that parents, I think, absolutely need to know. Kids who interact with gambling-like features in their games are significantly more likely to start gambling for real money. And the frightening part of this, we're not just talking about teenagers. This study looked at kids as young as 10. In today's Doctor's Desk episode of the Happy Families podcast, we break down the study, look at what happened in the study, what's happening with our kids, and what we can do about it. Stay with us. That's next.
Merrick Wolski escapes into sensory overload using the gaming platform Roblox. But the 17-year-old is worried gameplay feels increasingly like gambling.
Rolling dice, and dependent on your luck, you get different pets. To me, blatantly feels like the whole point of the game is gambling.
G'day, welcome to the Happy Families podcast, real parenting solutions every single day. It's Australia's most downloaded parenting podcast. We are Justin and Kylie Coulson. Today, it's a Doctor's Desk episode with high applicability to every family whose kids are old enough to play games online on a screen. Kylie, let's kick straight into this one.
So what did they actually do?
Okay, so this is a study coming out of Belgium, 561 Belgian children aged 10 to 17. So we're talking about our tweens and our teens. They were surveyed twice, 12 months apart. And essentially the researchers were tracking their exposure to gambling-like elements in games and the degree to which they were involved in real-world gambling.
So when you talk about gambling-like elements, what are you suggesting?
Okay, so in this particular study, they looked at three types of gambling-like elements. You know this. We've talked about this so much on the pod. Big tech turns their platform into something like a casino because of the
flashing lights.
Well, the interval of the reward keeps people coming back and back and back, like the rattle the pigeon in the BF Skinner box. So three different types of gambling that they looked at: loot boxes, social casino games, and watching gambling streams and videos.
I'm curious, how does watching a gambling stream impact players?
Yeah, so let's talk about each of these in turn. If you're watching a gambling stream, what that basically does is it normalises the process of gambling. It's so interesting because when you hear things, it's very easy to be dismissive of them. For example, when we are talking to one of our children about their diet or about how much sleep they need or about how they need to get off their screen, and we start to talk about the reasons why, they go, don't believe it. It's not consistent with my experience. They just let it go, right? Words that we hear, they're like water off a duck's back so often. When we read something, it seems to carry more weight. It's almost like when you're literate and meaning can be conveyed through words on the written page, written words on the page.
Yeah, but usually you're reading someone who
you trust as an authority.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's right. Whereas your kids don't trust them. I know. And so basically when you read something, you're more likely to go along with it than when you hear it.
And I would also suggest if you're reading it, then you're motivated to take in what's being shared with you.
Because it's effortful and you're exactly.
You're choosing it.
The third thing that I was going to highlight is that when you watch something, then you're almost as certain to believe it because seeing is believing. And the way our brains work, when we see something happen, we are pretty well convinced that it is true, that it is real. That's why charts and graphs are so effective, by the way. If you want to be a persuasive communicator, just throw some charts and graphs in your presentations and everyone will believe that you know what you're talking about. It's remarkable. And so basically what happens here, if what you see affects your beliefs much more than what you hear or what you read, if what you see affects your beliefs affect your actions. So the more that the behavior is viewed, the more it is normalized. And the more it is normalized, the more likely it is that you think, well, if everyone else is doing it, I might as well do it as well. So that's how that particular element affects the probability of the likelihood that your children may end up gambling because they're watching gambling streams and videos. They're just seeing it normalized and they think that's what's happening.
What about the other two?
So the other two were loot boxes. For those who are not familiar with loot boxes, because you don't play games or your kids don't play games, or you don't think your kids are playing games at least, a loot box is like this. It's an in-game reward, but it happens randomly. Sometimes you'll pay real money, sometimes you pay a virtual currency. Sometimes you might win it, but rarely. But basically, you've got this opportunity to buy this loot box. Sometimes it's with points. Right, you've been playing Candy Crush forever, and now there's a loot box, and you've got to have enough stars or enough of whatever so that you can get the loot box. And you don't know what you're going to get in the loot box until you open it. This is literally the same psychological mechanism as I'm pulling the lever. A poker machine, sorry. You don't pull levers anymore, you push buttons. But you pull the lever, you push the button, you wait for the result, and you hope
Have you got a secret life I don't know about?
Well, this is why I'm so bad at it, because I clearly don't spend any time in a casino. Sometimes you get something really big, sometimes you get nothing. But you get these loot boxes a lot in games like Roblox and in Fortnite, and even in your sort of PlayStation games like FIFA, the soccer game. And then the last one that they were looking at, as I said, social casino games. So these are casino style games. Again, forgive my ignorance, but I don't spend time in a casino. But things like the poker or poker or the slots. I got my in the wrong spot. The poker or slots or roulette. And so you're playing for virtual money instead of real cash. So it's essentially, it's role-playing gambling. It's all the mechanics of real gambling. You've got the same, like you said, Kylie, the flashing lights and all the sounds and the wins and the losses, but there's no real money changing hands. So it trains your brain to believe in and become acquainted with and familiar with and enjoy the gambling patterns. It's just that there's no financial risk. But again, it's about normalising the behaviour. So they're the three things that they were looking at.
And what did they find?
Really easy to summarise this. 75% of kids aged 10 to 17, 3/4 of our tween and teen children had interacted with gambling-like elements in that 12-month period. So
70%.
75. So it's everywhere. 75%. It's everywhere.
Wow.
Secondly, and again, no surprises here, boys were way more exposed than girls. It was like an 85 versus 55 to 60% difference.
Well, I'm not surprised by that either. I look at the way you and I in the past have played our little Candy Crush sagas or whatever they are, whatever the games we've played. You get really caught up in the reward system.
I can't put it down.
Whereas I get stuck on a level, and I might be stuck on that level for weeks because I don't care about the challenges or you just do
it because you're bored.
Yeah, I'm just playing to kind of have a bit of an outlet, whereas you get
learn how the game works.
Sucked in.
Yep.
And yeah.
Where do I get the prizes? How many stars do I need for this?
It blows my mind just how invested you become in something.
Yeah, and so the decision we have made is that we just don't have the games on our phones anymore, because every time I download the game, you lose me for 3 or 4 weeks, and then I'm like, oh my goodness, it's happened again. I can't believe that with everything I know, it's still happened.
It's just the way our brains work so differently.
Yeah. Let me go on. 60% had gambled for real money, which is obviously illegal if you're under 18. But we're talking about 11 to 17-year-olds, 10 to 17-year-olds. So 60% of them had gambled for real money, mostly, interestingly, in Belgium at least, using scratch cards, but then betting with friends and sports and even participating in the lottery. Kids who were exposed to the gambling-like elements in the first year were significantly more likely to gamble for real money in the second year. So basically the pathway is as follows. Exposure shifts attitudes about gambling, which leads to an intention to gamble, which leads to actual gambling. And what's really interesting about this is that peer pressure was looked at as a covariate, and it just wasn't that important. Attitudes matter way more than what peers are doing. It's what kids think about gambling that determines whether they'll gamble, way more than what their peers are doing.
Interesting.
Yeah, so if I'm looking at my friends, and I've been raised in a home where my parents say gambling is for turkeys, this is not a wise thing to do. Why would you do it? It's literally the most foolish thing you can do with your money. And if I've endorsed that and I've internalized that and integrated that into my identity, I'm just a person who doesn't gamble, even with the games flashing up all this sort of stuff. When my peers are gambling, I'm not going to go, oh, peer influence, I think I should have a flutter. I'm going to look at my friend and say, what are you doing that for? That's so dumb. But if I start to engage with these gambling-like elements in my games, then holy cow, I'm in trouble, because that's going to start to change my attitude, which is then going to change my intention, which is predictive of the likelihood of me doing it.
Okay, so Doctor's Desk is partly about you geeking out, but it's also about us giving families and parents in particular help. How do we help parents navigate this space with their kids?
3 simple answers right after the break. Stay with us. We're back. This is the Happy Families podcast where you get real parenting solutions every single day. Kylie, let me answer your question. What are we supposed to do? Because I think this is really important. The core message before we talk about what to do is as follows. We're not just talking about loot boxes. We're talking about all of these gambling-like elements that are appearing more and more in our children's ecosystem online. And unfortunately, they don't even have to be online. They can be on TV. You show up at a sports event. Gambling is everywhere. You listen to podcasts. There are literally hundreds of millions of dollars that are being spent every single year in Australia to get the gambling message out there. These are morality-free, conscience-free people. I cannot believe that our government has been so feckless at a political level that there is not better safeguarding and guardrails around our kids and their gambling. The whole ecosystem is normalising it, and kids don't see it as gambling; they see it as part of the game. So, what do parents do? A couple of really basic things. First off, you need to know what your kids are doing. Actually understand the mechanics. Don't just know the game title. How many parents who are listening to this right now know that Roblox has loot boxes and other gambling-like elements? How many parents listening right now know that Fortnite and FIFA have these kinds of elements, and the list goes on? I think that it's worth in your conversations with the kids making the connection explicit. So literally say to them, this is how poker machines work. If you're going to let the kids play games that do have these elements, it's important that you talk to the kids about not just the elements, but also talk to them about limits on how they're going to interact with the game. Certainly let them know that under no circumstance are you satisfied for them to be spending money because this is promoting and enabling gambling. And just watch what they're watching. Like, know whether or not they're watching streams of people playing these games. Have the conversation. Gambling companies design these to be addictive, and it is working.
I'm going hardcore. Just abolish them all.
Delete the apps. Throw the games in the bin.
Yep, done.
Yeah, problem is then the kids go and do it at their friends' houses. The conversations, you know this. We have these conversations every Sunday.
I actually don't have a problem with them going to their friends and having a game on the computer.
But if they're sitting there watching streams of people gambling, if they're playing virtual pokies but for fake money rather than real money, if they're engaging in casino-style games, are you okay with that?
No, not at all. But I'm saying I would much prefer my daughter to go and spend a couple of hours at her friend's place and play a video game with her friend than have it in my home where she has access to it whenever she wants. That's what I'm saying.
The conversation still counts. What are they going to do while they're at that person's house?
You could say that about anything.
That's why parenting matters. That's why we do this podcast. All right, bottom line, the gateway to gambling is real, and often it is through the pathway of gaming. Exposure to gambling is going to change how your kids think about gambling, and that is going to be the biggest predictor of whether they do or not. Once they think that gambling is either fun or normal or profitable or an indicator of their skill, their special talent, their ability, the step to actually doing the real gambling is just so tiny. It's so easy for them to make that next step. We can't control the industry. We can control what happens in our own homes. And Kylie, we can control the conversation we have with our kids when they're going to other people's homes.
Well, since we try not to helicopter parent in this house, I think that might be a good place to start.
We will link to the research article in the show notes for today's episode. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rulon from Bridge Media, and Mim Hammonds provides research, admin, and additional support. If you'd like more info to make your family happier or to keep your kids out of gambling, you might want to check out my brand new book. It's called Boys, Raising Strong Young Men from the Inside Out. You can pre-order it now at booktopia.com.au or visit happyfamilies.com.au to join the waitlist.